Hello and welcome back to the Puncher's Chance podcast, and welcome to the preview show where we have a look forward to everything coming up this weekend in boxing. This weekend, I can't believe I'm saying this, I'm looking forward to a card involving Jake Paul with obviously Zurdo Ramirez, Tevin Farmer, Floyd Schofield and more. On that card, as well as that, you've got Christian and Billy fighting, Suletsky, and of course Deontay Wilder returning to the ring once again with a big fight possibly in the pipeline for him. So all that good stuff. Stick around, subscribe or follow on Spotify, do all that good stuff. And with all that out of the way, straight into the action. It's Jake Paul, innit?
They're building towards him and Ramirez fighting, I reckon.
Do you think? Is that what they're doing? They're going to meet in the ring afterwards?
They put him on the same card. You know, Jake Paul will show up Ramirez with a massive knockout. Mm-hmm. And he calls him out then. Yeah.
In all seriousness, we try and avoid talking about Jake Paul where we can, because it's gotten to a point where we don't care. But unfortunately, what they've done is they've put on a card
you've got to talk about
that's actually quite good. Yeah. And if it didn't have, we were just talking about it before, El Gallo, his new nickname, which we're going for the cock as opposed to the chicken. I think it's just a mistranslation. It didn't have him on it, and you know Bob Arum was ringside, you'd be going, oh, it's a tidy little card this. You know, if Eddie Hearn had put it on in the States, you'd be going, oh, you know, it's a decent little card. Zurdo Ramirez, Floyd Schofield, Tevin Farmer, that's a good fight. But unfortunately, it's got Jake Paul in it, doesn't it?
Yeah, headlining on Netflix again. Netflix putting some good cards together, mind, to be fair to them.
Yeah, they are, and obviously Crawford Canelo's just had a little face-off. Maybe we can talk a bit about that later on in the show. Which is just Mike Tyson's got so much to answer for, doesn't he? Because he's given MVP enough money to put on a good card. It's realistically what he's done.
I think it's decent. Like, as much as you want to argue against it, he's probably one of the most well-known names in boxing at this point, Jake Paul.
Without a doubt, yeah.
He's positioned himself very well, and I'm just scared to live in a world where he fights like Badu Jack for a WBC title. Like, if we get to the point where Jake Paul is walking to the ring with an opportunity to win a WBC belt, they'd love that as well as WBC.
Yeah.
If he won that, and they could slap them fucking hats on his head and say, sling that fucking t-shirt on.
Yeah.
They would love it. But
yeah, and then obviously preview, you know, Manny Pacquiao versus Mario Barrios 4 or whatever it will be.
That'll be the day I tap out the boxing, I think.
Yeah.
You know what, I've had a good run.
It's the day I tap out, I think.
I've had a good run. Let's call it a day. But yeah, you've got to respect him as a businessman more than anything else, I think. Yeah,
and you know what? We've given him a lot of credit over the last sort of 3-4 months, funnily enough, when he hasn't been fighting, for the work they're doing in terms of women's boxing. They have I think they have like 5 or 6 of the top 10 pound for pound female boxers at the moment on their books. They are aggressively going for it. But unfortunately, he's fighting Julio Chavez Jr. in a fight. Chavez, obviously a former cruiserweight. I think he was a former middleweight world champion, actually. But a man who's been in there with, you know, the likes of Canelo, a bona fide professional in his own right, albeit some way out of the ring and not been at its best for a very, very long time. It presents another real opportunity for Jake Paul to convince a handful more people that he's a better boxer than he is.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's a big name factor again, isn't it? Like, I didn't realise he's only 39. I thought he was older.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, someone with a bit of pedigree in the boxing world. Obviously, you had Mike Tyson, but Mike Tyson was like fucking kicking 70 at the point they were fighting. Yeah. So he's knocked about 30 odd years off this opponent, but still, it's just could be the time we finally see this bit of a circus come to an end. But
people tend to forget he did lose to Tommy Fury, who in his own right is a very poor boxer. Like
he wouldn't win a Southern area title or an area title.
I was going to say, apart from the fact he's from Manchester.
Yeah, so like an area title.
No, I don't think he would. I think Jake Paul probably would now, unfortunately. I think it'd be a good fight. I think he's a decent professional now. He's been doing it long enough, he's okay.
Yeah,
it's just, he's not good.
No, he's not good enough to be headlining Netflix shows is the thing.
No.
But I really think he'd be a good promoter. Do you know if he just went all out into promoting fights?
Yeah.
Especially with the work he's done in women's boxing, and he's a bit of a shithouse as well. You know, he could rattle people. I think he'd be a very entertaining promoter and do a good job of it. But I think it's just this thing of him pretending he could win a world title that riles me up.
Yeah, I think as well, if he has any say in the matchmaking of his fight, whoever his matchmakers are, earn every penny of their day, because the way they pick the opponents that make a certain type of boxing fan go, oh my god, he's got an actual opponent, he's fighting a basketball player. You know what I mean? Yeah, like they've done well to kind of slowly build him up from, you know, complete bum who no one, you know, puts any interest into. Oh, he's an MMA fighter, at least he's a combat, but you know, it's Ben Askren and he moves on up, and eventually you're looking at fighting a professional boxer who's a former world champion. So they've built it up well, but like you say, it's that false bravado, I think, that rubs people up the wrong way. And we could talk about this all day, and let's be real, I don't want to. Mm-hmm. You know, the only reason I'm just seeing the numbers on TikTok at the moment is the only reason I'm keep going. But we do have a really good fight in Floyd Schofield versus Tevin Farmer. Obviously, Floyd Schofield, an unbeaten, fairly young, I believe, quality fighter, was meant to fight Shakur Stevenson on a Riyadh season card before Joshua Padley stepped in. And then you've got Tevin Farmer, who's given William Zepeda, who's now fighting Shakur Stevenson, 2 really good tests. That in itself, over 10 rounds, looks like it's going to be a good fight to watch. Yeah,
really good test for Schofield. Like I said, the Tevin Farmer probably has given Zepeda the toughest of tests.
Yeah, twice, yeah.
Were they both split decisions?
I can't remember, actually, but they were certainly both close fights. Yeah. The first one, I think, slightly more so, but you probably could have maybe put that one either way, but Zepeda got the go. It was, good fights.
Should make for a really interesting fight. Was he 22, Schofield? So
yeah, young.
It's one of those worrying ones who might get like old man a bit, if you get what I mean. Like Farmer's been about, he's been in there with some very good fighters, so the experience could play a factor, but it's one where obviously they'll be hoping Schofield will get through. That's a very good name to add to your list to go 19-0
Yeah, exactly. If Schofield wins this, Tevin Farmer, he would have fought for the WBC interim, wouldn't he? Because that's what Zepeda has now. So, in winning that, you are putting yourself right on the periphery of a world title around 20-0. In terms of similar time, and that's that's about the same as what Abdullah Mason's done with obviously the WBO now with Sam Noakes. I look forward to that fight, and again, it pains me to say it, it's a good fight on a Jake Paul card, and it's not Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano, because that's what obviously we've seen previously, and then Zurdo Ramirez as well, the best cruiserweight on the planet, I think, probably based off of who he's beaten. Whether or not a fight between him and Jai Opetaia would end a different way, I think could easily be disputed, but I think based off who he's beaten and how he's beaten them, you'd probably have to say he's the best.
Yeah, I think, maybe just off Opetaia, you're waiting for, I think that Ramirez, the fight between them two is like crowning the ultimate. Obviously, it'd be probably undisputed at that point, wouldn't it? But be crowning the ultimate cruiserweight, because they just the two of them look a level above anyone else. Like Ramirez in that Billum Smith fight just looked incredible. And
it was scary how much better than Billum Smith he was on that night.
Yeah, I thought he looked so good, and I'm excited to see the fight between them two. I know obviously he's got to get through this weekend, but I think he should do more than comfortably enough, and then I think that's the only route they can go down now, is setting the fight up between them two. There's no one else in the cruiserweight division, I think, that gets near either of them at the moment.
No, I desperately hope that what they basically do is get Zurdo Ramirez through this one, maybe give Jai Opetaia just, Badu Jack can sling one. The sooner he gets out of the picture, the better, and we can have an undisputed title fight at cruiserweight between those two. That would be the dream. I think I saw something the other day that Turkey's delivered us 6 undisputed title fights, I believe.
Yeah, 6.
And that would obviously be a pretty tidy 7th. I wouldn't mind that at all. And obviously, I think it was the Beterbiev Bivol rematch was the rematch one? I think the rematch was, but then someone got stripped. I can't remember. Whatever that is, if that happens a third time, it won't be an undisputed title fight. I know for certain. And obviously, the Usyk Fury rematch wasn't either. But I think, if we're talking about building an undisputed title fight, is that maybe the best in the world at the moment you can build? Bar Usyk to Bar, which we're obviously already getting. I'm trying to think of a weight division where there's a clash I'm more excited for.
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, it's a difficult. You can get some good ones at the moment.
Well, if you work your way down light heavyweight, we've seen Beterbiev Bivol.
I think Canelo Crawford's going to be quite an interesting
but again,
one. You don't know what way that's going to go.
It requires Crawford to come up 2 weight classes for it to happen. Middleweight's a fairly poor division at the moment. Super welter, nothing too exciting. Maybe a lightweight undisputed title fight between Shakur Stevenson and Tank would supersede it, but there's a lot more pieces to fall into place before that could happen.
Something with a Niue, maybe.
I think this is the best. Bam Rodriguez and Niue would maybe be at super bantamweight, would maybe be the next best thing. And I saw Bam talking about that the other day, so it could possibly be more so on the horizons. But I do generally believe, I think that's the best undisputed title fight in the world that's not been made or we haven't already seen.
They've got a WBC interim fight this weekend as well, haven't they?
Yeah, Michael Cieslak's fighting somebody who I forget for the WBC interim, which is frustrating because then I suppose Badu Jack then has another opportunity at a world title fight, and then you're pushing that, you're kicking that stone further down the road in terms of do you just cut your losses and make the fight, or do you try and get it for an undisputed?
Yeah, you want to see it, especially when we watched Badu Jack in his last fight. Like, full respect to him, he's like a world champion. I don't want to discredit him, but when you look at his level compared to those two, it's just worlds apart.
Do you feel like the both of them walk through anyone bar each other?
Yeah, exactly. That's the only one that interests.
It feels like the light heavyweight division in a sense of Beterbiev and Bivol.
Yeah.
You don't see anyone troubling them other than each other. So it's like you just keep fighting those two. Just have a fight every year, once a year, every year, for as long as you want to keep doing it. I'm happy with that.
I suppose once you've got them to a fought as well, and you decide a winner, probably ultimately get a rematch, because they love throwing a rematch clause in there. But you could make the argument then that they move on to heavyweight, maybe.
Well, Zurdo's come up from like middleweight.
Yeah, maybe not Zurdo, but Jai Opetaia.
Jai Opetaia's talked about it, hasn't he?
Or bridgeweight.
Yeah, but I think I've always said I don't know if Opetaia would carry the power through to heavyweight, but we are seeing more and more smaller, hard-hitting heavyweights coming, being successful. Usyk obviously not hard-hitting necessarily, but certainly a small heavyweight. Moses Atoma's obviously coming through. Richard Torres Jr. is quite a small heavyweight. There's a new breed of heavyweight coming through, which all the old heads obviously go, Mike Tyson, Evander Holyfield, Lennox Lewis would absolutely obliterate them. We'll never know.
No.
But there's a reason they're beating the big heavyweights, and it's because they're quite good.
Yeah, it's like you said, a new sort of breed, like with Atoma. I love Atoma. I've said plenty of times, but
yeah.
Big fan of Atoma, but yes, you almost get that sort of with Usyk. You like when you watch him, sometimes you forget that he's now a heavyweight. You feel like he's just a cruiserweight that's just taking the heavyweights out because of the size difference. But yeah, maybe it's something we see a lot more in the future. The cruiserweights, or sort of cruiserweights, either stepping up to heavyweight or just naturally smaller heavyweights who dominate a bit more because of they're a bit not necessarily heavy-handed compared to more old school heavyweights, but just lighter, quicker on their feet, a bit more, reactive. So yeah, but that's the only fight to make a cruiserweight is Ramirez and Opetaia. That's the one we need to see before anything else happens, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what we can do then is we will load up the Boxing News app and see if this is on the predictions for it, which I'm hoping it probably will be, as it's the big fight card for the weekend. And then we'll kick on over to maybe some of the other fights and some of the other bits and bobs going on this weekend. It does feel like ages since we've done this because me and Harry did it last week, and the week before we didn't do it. I'm just having a look if it's on here.
Paul Chavez.
It is on here. There we go. Have they updated it all? They have. Let's have a look. We've got Avius Griffin versus Julian Rodriguez, a welterweight 10-rounder. Griffin I think he's a big hitting welterweight, so I'm going for a stoppage on that one.
Was it the Griffin Rodriguez fight?
Yes.
So he's got 94%. Love looking at the stats. Yeah, it's going to have to go.
Griffin stat merchant.
Floyd's fights underneath that.
There are a number of fights underneath that, but nothing on... Oh, they've just loaded. Sorry, mine hadn't loaded. We'll go back to that one. Victor Morales, Rene Alvarado, super featherweight 10-rounder. Ooh.
Two South American boys.
Oh, you know what they say? You don't... I don't know, where is he from? El Salvador or Nicaragua? One of them two. You don't stop a Nicaraguan or El Salvadorian, depending where he is.
Morales points.
I'm going same. Holly Holm versus Yolanda Vega.
10-0.
I'm going for a Vega points decision on that one. I think she's going to be the better of the two.
A lot of people have gone home. I'll go home decision.
At 43. It's bold. Raul Curiel versus Victor Ezequiel Rodriguez. Welterweight 10-rounder.
Curiel stoppage.
I'm going to go for the same. We'll skip out the next fight because we've just already done it. Floyd Schofield, Tevin Farmer.
This is a difficult one.
It is a difficult one. Am I going to be boring and go for a Schofield points decision, which I think is probably the most likely? I am.
Yeah, I've got the same as well. I think we've got the same on the all cards.
Yeah. Zerdo Ramirez versus Juniel Dorticos. I suppose we didn't even talk about his opponent.
93.
I was going to say he's a big hitting Cuban. He's not quite as a snooze fest, hopefully, as William Skull. Obviously, that Mexican versus Cuban clash. What are you going for this one?
I'll go Ramirez stoppage.
I went for the same. This is really boring.
I thought you were going to go points.
Jake Paul versus Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. Cruiserweight 10-rounder. What are you going for?
I'm going to go Jake Paul stoppage.
Same.
There's probably a real possibility that he wins on points because Chavez Jr. should be smart enough to not get caught with a big shot because obviously he's a very experienced boxer, but I don't know. I feel like they're just setting it up for let's make Jake Paul look good and say he knocked out the world champion.
Yeah, I agree. I think they've probably picked it and they've seen what they need to see. And I just don't think Chavez Jr. is going to be great, even though he is training quite heavily for this one, I believe. So we'll have to see.
Up and beats him.
Elsewhere on the card as well, I think Joshua Edwards, he's an Olympian, and I can't remember who he beat. He beat someone in the Pan American Games, who I think went on to maybe even win the Olympics or get in a final in the Olympics. Exciting fight. I watched his last fight over the weekend, and he looks solid, quality fighter as a heavyweight. So he's one to watch. Elsewhere, like I mentioned, Christian Mbili fighting Matej Suletsky. Lost to Pacheco last time out, Suletsky, with a lovely body shot stoppage. Really lovely body shot stoppage. But this is for the WBC interim, so presumably setting up this for the winner of Crawford Canelo once they've got probably rematches and whatnot else out the way. What is Mbili? He's hard to pinpoint how good he is, isn't he? Because he hasn't really had that one big test.
Yeah, he always looks really impressive. And obviously, was he 28-0, 23 stoppages. I feel like every time a fight rolls around with him in, we're just like, we just want to see him step up. I would have liked to have seen him fight someone like Canelo, but obviously they've got the mega money fight happening in September now, but yeah, it just feels like he's constantly biding his time waiting for a shot at something.
But equally so is Diego Pacheco, and you sort of think one of those two, especially now you've got Hamza Shiraz, Edgar Berlanga at that weight class. You've got Hamza Shiraz moved up for that. That's a great fight. You're going to have there 3 fighters chomping at the bit for a world title fight. And an undisputed title fight happening above them. It looks to maybe be a little while yet, but eventually we're probably going to see a really exciting super middleweight division once Canelo either moves on or or the IBF or whoever else it be do their job?
Yeah, I think that's just the case now. Like Canelo, because he's so good, he's had them belts wrapped up for years on end, so he's just waiting for the sort of belts to fragment, and everyone, you'll see some really good fights pop up in that division, because there is a sense of, as much as you want to see these big fights, there's no point, like personally for me anyway, if I was one of those fighters, I wouldn't be thinking, right, let's take one of these for little reward.
Yeah,
if I'm not fighting for a world title and not much money, why am I going to do it? So I think, there's just a sense of waiting for that fight to happen in September and see where the sort of land lies at super middleweight after that.
What I suppose we haven't really discussed is the world in which Bud Crawford wins a fight.
Yeah.
You know, we've talked a lot about Canelo. You know, yeah, that's what I mean. Does he stay at super middleweight, or does he move down to probably a more natural middleweight for him, or even lower than that, super welter? Where does he sit? You know, what does he do? That's obviously, I still think Canelo has to be the favourite in that fight because of the size and the amount of time he spent at that weight and the power he holds at that weight. But it's a genuine possibility. You know, Bud Crawford is a world level fighter, top elite fighter. And so he has every chance in that fight, you'd have to say.
Yeah, but the Canelo fight's the only one that made sense for him to jump up in it. Like, if he does go on to win it, probably get a rematch. If not, then I think he just vacates all the belts and moves back down, because Crawford fighting against any, like Billy, for example, is not going to draw the same attention as the massive fight that they've put on in September. So, yeah, I still think Crawford will go in as favourite. But
you think Crawford or Canelo?
Canelo,
I was going to say.
Canelo should still go in as favourite because he's the natural super middleweight. But when you've seen them up on stage with each other the other day, I think you mentioned it, they don't look massively different in size, but
they don't look it, but that's because Canelo's a particularly short super middleweight. He's not even a super middleweight naturally, he's a welterweight, but he's obviously moved up over the years and filled out that frame now, I think. And I just think you can look the part, but it's whether you feel comfortable and move the part. It is a different ball game. Mm-hmm. It's a completely different ball game.
It's going to be an exciting fight to watch, that though.
Yeah, I've backtracked slightly on my original statement that I thought that was a bad fight. I think I maybe underplayed a bit Crawford's ability and that, but it is also a stretch in terms of making Bud up to Canelo, and so like we keep saying, I just think Canelo has to be the favourite in that one.
Where does that put Crawford all time if he goes and beats him? That's a fucking statement.
I can't talk all time yet, I don't think.
If he goes up to,
but he would be undoubtedly the pound for pound number one in the world, and it would take a serious achievement to exceed him on that, because that would be beating another pound for pound star who's done it for years for all of the best, come up in 2 or 3 weight classes to do so. If he pulled that off, it would be astronomical.
It'd be a massive win for him, I think.
And the fact that it's going to be on Netflix as well. You know, when we talked about Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano and Jake Paul, Mike Tyson on Netflix, that was a huge fight. And it was as big as it was because it was on Netflix. I spoke to people who weren't boxing fans but mentioned it to me and talked to me about it because they'd seen it on Netflix and they'd watched the documentary that they'd made attached to it. And it reaches a new audience. And if you tell people that this is one of the biggest fights in boxing, which it is, and they watch a documentary attached to it, they will be interested in it, and people will watch. And therefore, it will probably, I would say, I think it will be the most watched boxing fight this year.
Yeah, probably.
Almost certainly.
Should be, but
unless we get some massive, like, I think it would have to be AJ Fury in Wembley or something along those lines, with a basically, with a Riyadh season undercard, would be the only thing that would exceed that.
Yeah. Well, they're already starting to try and build the hype with a little push and shove.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's catered to the more casual boxing fans that just They're just looking at it and thinking, oh, there's a bit of tension.
Well,
between them
maybe
two.
when they had dinner the other day, one of them took the last chicken wing or something.
Yeah,
so there
yeah.
actually is a bit of bite, you know, in, oh, you fucking took my fucking chicken, you know. But I'm not buying it. It's like you say, it's to sell a fight. But unfortunately for us and for most boxing fans, it doesn't need selling.
And they were making a big thing about the knockout bonus, weren't they? I think someone has said they're making $5 million if they get a knockout, as if they're not getting. Well, Crawford's getting paid apparently $100 million, and Canelo 250.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's like saying to somebody, oh, you know, here's £100 for the job, and I'll give you £1 extra if you do it well. It's
Quarter of a fucking billion.
They're not going to
like
risk losing the fight for the sake of $5 million, which is mental. I would do. There's very few things I wouldn't do for $5 million, but maybe that's one for another podcast. No, it's a mental fight. It's a big fight.
Biggest fight of the year. Think it'll go down as.
Maybe.
I don't think it's going to be bigger.
It's hard to see or to picture what Usyk Dubois will look like in terms of as a spectacle, as an event in Wembley. I think that is huge. But I think more, actually, do you know what? I don't think the global audiences will attract to that as much. I think Usyk's a huge name in the UK more than he is anywhere else.
Yeah,
other than obviously Ukraine.
Probably because he just fucks up all the UK.
Well, yeah, and Dubois isn't a name that the Americans would get out of bed for to the same degree. So yes, probably in the world, yes. Which is, it's exciting stuff. We've had some big ones over the last couple of years.
Now we've started to see the sort of build up, the press conferences, Dana White getting in the middle.
It's when it starts to feel real, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You're like, oh yeah, this is happening.
We've been here before, and let's get to fight night before we get.
Yeah, you get too excited before it gets delayed. But elsewhere as well, we got Deontay Wilder's making a comeback again. Another one. Every time he makes a comeback, he loses. They've positioned this one nicely that he really shouldn't be losing this, should he?
No, he needs to win.
And it obviously is in the aim, I think, of setting up a fight versus Anthony Joshua.
I thought it was Dave Allen.
Well, yeah, but no, I don't know. I think the AJ fight makes the most sense for Deontay Wilder just because money.
It makes sense for Wilder money-wise. In terms of actually being a fight, it makes more sense for Joshua. Because it builds him up again. It's a fight we should have seen about fucking 15 years ago when they both...
Yeah.
We could have had that for Undisputed.
Yeah.
And then if Turkey was kicking about then...
Yeah. Andy Ruiz would have been told to do one.
Yeah, he'd still be fucking... He'd be sat in Mexico... Well, his life would be a lot different, so I'm sure he's glad.
I'm happy for him, but he did half mess it up for us. He really, really messed it up.
I think
for us.
we were only that one. Possibly if AJ had won the fight that night, we probably would have got it. But
and AJ stuck an absolute beauty on him in that first fight that he just ate. If he'd have just got knocked clean out with that, lovely bish bash bosh. AJ Wilder. Exciting stuff. AJ beats Wilder. Oh, AJ Fury in Wembley. Go on.
Yeah, I know.
But where have we got instead? Instead, we got a couple fights with Dillian White. We got, Ngannou. What was that all about?
Was the rematch the first fight we had in Riyadh as well?
The
Joshua
Ruiz.
Or was that somewhere else?
Or was it in Jeddah? It was in Saudi Arabia. I can't remember if it was in Jeddah or Riyadh.
No, it was fucking terrible.
Was Jake Paul, Tommy Fury not in Saudi Arabia as well? But I can't remember if that was first. As was Fabio Wardley versus David Adelaide, but was I think that was on the AJ Ruiz undercard, if I remember correctly. We've come a long way since then. But is Deontay Wilder going to do it, do you think?
What, fight?
Win this and then fight AJ?
For the payday, maybe. But it just don't feel like there's not the same attractiveness to it now, is it?
No, there's not. There isn't. But I think
AJ's just been sparked out.
Well, yeah. I think AJ carries a name wherever he goes, whatever he does from now on, because he just is that guy.
It'll still be exciting in a way to watch, just to get a final answer. But I just really wish we did have it
all those years ago. Yeah,
when they were both. When AJ was the man in Britain. Wilder, he would just knock people out by fucking locking her arm.
Yeah.
Like, that's when we needed it. But
Yeah, the fall from grace, when you sort of look at what we had before with them two, and then you fast forward a couple years and you've got Gilles Zhang spinning Wilder on a sixpence and knocking him clean out, and then you've got AJ getting flattened early by Dubois and hanging on by a thread the entire time and going out on his shield. When you compare those two things and the different ways all those moments could have gone.
I feel like Fury just punched whatever was inside Wilder out of him over those 3 fights. I think Wilder before that trilogy and after that trilogy are a different man, as you'd expect.
I don't think it was what Fury punched into him. I think it's what number was shown in front of him when he pops to the ATM was probably what. And I think he's kind of gone on a sort of a peace journey since himself and on ayahuasca and stuff, and found peace in the world, and just kind of literally put out that flame that made him the most dangerous man on the planet at one point. And let's not forget that Tyson Fury, wherever you want to say, was unconscious at one point during that fight, and very well could have been, called a knockout. He turned into the Undertaker, sat up, got up, and finished the fight. But there is a world again where Deontay Wilder wins that first fight.
Yeah, it's mad to think there's like so many what if moments in boxing. Like if Fury hadn't got up there, we might not have seen Fury box again after that.
Or even if the ref had looked at it, I don't know, he would have faked another couple of retirements, surely. Yeah. But even if just the ref had looked at him and went, oh no, he's out. Because he was. He was.
Looked sparked.
I think in a few years' time, if you sat and he's retired and he's out the game for good, and you sat him down and went, did Wilder put you unconscious? He'd go, yeah.
I still don't understand how he got up.
Miracle.
Like,
he's got spindly legs at the best of times. He doesn't look like he should be balanced anyway.
Yeah,
but
I think he hit him so hard he reset him.
Factory
like, he just went down. He was like, whoop.
He just, I'm a fighting man. As he stood up and went, yeah, I'm good. He went full reset. Yeah, you might be right,
But it's
the best theory I've heard so far.
There's so many fights that we should have maybe seen, and we're probably getting them too late. But I'd still like to see Fury, Joshua Wilder. I'd want to see Fury Joshua. I think they're still exciting to some extent. They've just lost that little bit of shine compared to what they would have been maybe a few years ago.
Yeah, but we can trust the WBC to fake some silly little belt, can't we?
Oh yeah.
So that'll do for one of them to walk out the ring with round their shoulder. That's better than nothing, right?
Yeah, I still think the money that'd be thrown at them as well, it'd be silly to turn it down, wouldn't they?
Yeah, and I suppose as well you're getting to the point there when obviously Jake Paul is moving up to heavyweight after clearing out the cruiserweight division as an undisputed champion, knocking Jai Opetaia out in one round, and then looking and calling out Gilles Zhang at 68 or whatever it will be by then.
Imagine we get, I doubt we will. Imagine we got Jake Paul and like Anthony Joshua.
It's not happening.
Imagine imagine someone told you that like 5-10 years ago, you'd be like, kid off Disney Channel.
Yeah. was it not Daniel Dubois that went go on then when he basically Jake Paul said he chinned Dubois or something, and Dubois replied going, yeah, go on then, like let's have it. I'd
pay stupid amounts of money to see that happen,
because I think Daniel Dubois would cause an obscene amount of damage to Jake Paul.
Imagine.
But yeah, we'll have to wait and see. This has just turned into a sort of Jake Paul and WBC hate watch, hasn't it, this podcast so far?
A little bit. No, I got some respect for
the WBC. We have some respect for Jake Paul, and do you know what, we've uttered that and made that point very clear a number of times, but nobody seems to care. No one seems to care when you go Jake Paul's an all right guy because he's Yeah. I mean, actually, you know what? While we're on the hate watch, the one thing we're excited about with Jake Paul, one of the few things, our good old mate Elizabeth Ashoba signed with MVP. Mm-hmm. She's the only one who hasn't been given a fight. Every other female that they've signed has been given a fight. Why not Elizabeth? She's been given nothing. Jake Paul, do better, son. Do better.
Yeah, they need to get her on one of the Netflix shows.
Yeah. If she was 68, Jake Paul would have her in the ring tomorrow with him. So, do better. Anything else to talk about, do you think?
No, it's quite a busy weekend, really, isn't it, when you look at it? There's no massive fights to look forward to, I suppose, but it's a good, solid weekend. Right, I think we got a nice little month coming up in July.
Yeah, you've got Harlem Eubank, Jack Cattrall, weekend after next, Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano on the 12th, Usyk Dubois and Pacquiao Barrios. And
nice way to finish it
I think there might be something else on that night as well, on the 19th.
Yeah, Bam Rodriguez fighting that night.
Bam Rodriguez on the 19th, and I'm sure there's something to finish off the month as well. Let's have a quick look. What is it
busy
that
all month.
Finishes off? Ryan Garner-Bellotti's a good card in Bournemouth on that night. Bruce Carrington.
To be fair, we've got a good couple of months now, because we got a busy July. August 16th, we got a big card in Saudi with...
Oh, of course, we've completely missed out the card. Shakur Stevenson, Hamza Shiraz, Belanga and Matthias Puello, which is on the 12th as well, same night as Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano, and...
so the Louis Armstrong... Is that what it is?
Yeah, the one in... is it tennis? Is it a tennis venue? I think it is.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if tennis or baseball, maybe.
Maybe. Either way.
We don't know our sports.
No, we know glove. Yeah. That we do know. If you agree, if you believe we also know glove, then subscribe on YouTube. Maybe by now we've hit 1,000 subscribers. If we have, then thank you for that. And subscribe if you haven't already to congratulate us. So I'm working this out in my head. Or follow us on Spotify for listening on Spotify. If you prefer the audio episodes or the video episodes, then click on the other one, because there's another option on the other platform if you prefer. Other than that, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, all that great stuff. Lots of great content coming soon, all over the place. So thank you all for tuning in for another week of the Puncher's Chance podcast, and we'll see you all next week.
Puncher's Chance. Puncher's Chance podcast.
I fucking love Jake Paul.
Right.
Is it fair to say Jake Paul is the best boxer in the world?
I think it's a conversation. No, the best. I don't think he's the most famous. He's definitely the best, though.
Most talented, raw talent.
Raw talent, yeah. Absolutely.
Absolute cunt.
Leave that in.